Alright, folks, so let's talk about District 9 for a bit, right?
Sure.
Yeah, man. Which is turning 15 years old this week, anytime I was recording this, right? 15 years older. My, how time flies, right? So, as we always do with retrospect reviews, we have to do the pre-ramble, we have to do the backstory, right? How we saw this film, how it, impacted us then and now, right? So, 2009, right? This movie came out theatrically, had to go and see it. And it's so funny, right? Because a few years before, I think it was like 2013 or something like that, right? There was a little French action movie called District B13, right?
Okay.
And I remember like I just sort of stumbled onto that movie, right? But I think the sell for that movie back then was parkour, right? For me, this was the first movie that really incorporated parkour, and it wasn't in that gimmicky way. It was like, oh shit, this is awesome, I should really do this. Even though, shows like The Office will kind of make fun of it, in that particular episode. I'll actually bring up The Office in this review here. But they're
very relevant,
parkour. Yeah, parkour is hilarious. Still
well, but the office is quite relevant in terms of like what the approach is in terms of the storytelling, the framing issue.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. So, District 9, right, came out, right, and when I heard the name, I was like, all right, like the first thing that came to mind, funny enough, was District B13, right? But I know it was not. It was two different films, right? But however, it was still this. It's in the near future kind of thing, right? But much to my surprise, when I actually saw the movie, what it does so well. I'll bring this up in the preamble while I talk about what I'm going to call the dystopian trilogy that the director Neill Blomkamp started with this movie. Yeah, what he does here is basically like an alternate reality, right? So, in other words,
right.
What we see, the events of this movie here, District 9, is actually in 2010, right? But it's an alternate version of 2010, right? And just keep in mind...
Right, because the divergence happens sometime in the 80s and you'll find out what it was. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And just in terms of just like world building, right? And this, the dystopian, and I'm going to be using this term a lot in this review, right? Yes, the dystopian story that he's telling, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because what the show does so well, and that's really what roped me in, right? Was it took something that was, well, a very serious socio-political issue that plagued South Africa for decades, right? Called apartheid, right? He was able to take that and frame it into a very, very compelling sci-fi story, right?
Yeah.
And that roped me in there, just the idea that, a sci-fi movie is going to tackle apartheid, okay. Because for me, right, alright, so for me, what makes this movie fascinating, right, when I first saw it was two things, right? As I said, this was a sci-fi take on apartheid, right? If you remember, in the 90s, there were, like, numerous movies, I don't want to say, like, a lot of movies, but numerous movies that were touching on apartheid, right? Whether it was, like, Dopa, which was Morgan Freeman's debut feature, or Cry Freedom, Catch a Fire, and the most famous one for me being Sarafina, which is a show that I genuinely don't like because, I don't know, it's just... you want to give them a really not whimsical, you want to give them a really hopeful, soul-stirring musical numbers, but you want to show them a really graphic, really disturbing depiction of violence, racism, racist-led violence, basically, right? Between whites and blacks. They kind of want to show me that, and it just felt too jarring for me, Jed. I didn't see it when it came out theatrically. I saw it when it showed on a local station. I didn't like it, to be honest. Yeah, it just rubbed me off the wrong way. Again, is you want to give me the music, but you also want to give me just the disturbing stuff. Now it just didn't work for me, right? And just really unsettled me, right? But yeah, at that time now, because of what was going on in the 80s and whatnot, and when it was like on its way out, right, in the 90s, especially with the release of Nelson Mandela, who was arrested, you were getting these movies, right? So yeah, again, for the first time I'm seeing this in a sci-fi setting, right? But I mean, when it comes to like racism, we've seen this before, right? In sci-fi, most notably with Alienation, right? Which I remember the series being on AVM, but I didn't know about the movie till years afterwards, right? But anyway, And then as far as, as far as apartheid movies go, the one I could really stomach is Invictus. That's with
Yeah, that's from Lita, which I find don't really work and it's kind of terrible. But well,
but Morgan Freeman was cool as
was it because that's the big problem. It's his terrible accent is what kind of kill it now. Like they should get somebody else.
All right,
But they had to get a big star. So
yeah, I guess if I rewatch it though, I'll probably change my mind, right? But yeah, it was a big deal because it was directed by Clint Eastwood of all people, and it was Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon, who you'll get into later on, right? But yeah, and then the second thing, and this was for me the reason why this movie connect with me so much, right? Is that this was a sci-fi movie that was set in Africa, Dread. And for me, it was like, okay, because when it comes to sci-fi, we always, like when we grew up, we always see it from an American lens. You always see it, or North American lens, or a European or Asian lens, right? But I never saw it from an African lens. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Nollywood was blowing up in the 2000s around that time, right?
Yeah, around that time, right.
Yeah, and I just sort of brushed it off like, oh, it's just bad soap opera and bad acting and whatnot, right? But for me, when I saw District 9, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Like, there are serious filmmakers here who want to tell real stories, right? But again, it was within the genre of sci-fi, and that just blew me away, right? So, long story short, for me, it felt like, yeah, it didn't matter that I was from the Caribbean, like, if I could tell a really compelling sci-fi story from my, about my environment, about my home, I could do that, and that's what Neill did with his movie, right? Because he is from South Africa, and what he's touching on is stuff that he saw, right? So just running through my preamble here quickly, right? So as I said, right, this is the debut feature from Neill Blomkamp, right? I want to talk about his dystopian trilogy in a bit, right? I didn't know till after the fact that it was based off a short film that he did called Alive in Joburg, right, which you can find on YouTube. It still holds up. It still holds up, right? But it's a very aesthetic take on what it's very aesthetic in terms of visuals. Take on what he will do in this movie here, right? Also, this movie is produced by Peter Jackson of all people, right? Because you had to get into that whole thing, the history of and why the movie looked like this, and that whole thing. But I'll talk about that in my rundown. Well, looking forward to that, right? And then also basically like the weapons that you see here, the creatures and the makeup effects, all done by Weta Workshop. So Neill get the backing that he need to basically take his short film and make it into this big budget, debut, right? And I can imagine like a lot of filmmakers just being inspired by that, like just taking like, I have this really cool short film, genre-based short film, and look, this guy actually able to make it into this big movie, right? So that was really cool, right? But like back to Alive in Joburg, right? If you look at it as basically like this movie pitch, it's just like, all right, this is the gist of what District 9 is about. You give it to investors, you show them it. It's like, all right, yeah, I like that. Like it works, right? In terms of how to, how to show your high concept. It works, right?
Yeah.
It shows the mockumentary style that is used throughout a chunk of the movie here. It also shows off, Neill's VFX work, because Neill have a history with visual effects, right? And early on in that, because there's a bit where you see these two soldiers going up against this alien mech, right? Yeah, it shows that Neill into video games. Like, you could see that early on. Yes, we will get into that as well too, right? So right. And it actually works though. I mean, even though again with the SD visuals and all that kind of stuff, it's dated, right? But it's very impressive in terms of what he's going for, right? And also, this was the first time, I think for many people, that we saw Sharlto Copley, right? Who has shown up in the dystopian trilogy, which you'll get into, right? And for me, this was the movie itself was the first time that I saw him, right? And then I was surprised to see him in that short film, right? And the man's career literally blew up after that, right? I mean, don't mind, right after that, he did the A-Team, which, all right, the A-Team. Whatever, right? So, in preparation for this, right, I looked at what I'm going to call the dystopian trilogy, right? Or I think in terms of the 4K Blu-ray that's out right now, it's called the Blomkamp tree, right? So it's District 9, Elysium, and Chappie, right? And I would say, having seen these movies in preparation for this, I kind of want to own that, even though I don't have a 4K player at all, right? But or a UHD player, right? But I kind of want this. I want this, right? So, Elysium, 2013, right? I saw it theatrically as well, right? I remember liking it when I saw it, but I never got around to recapping it, right? So, quite recently, I did, right? And what I will say, though, is that, so fun fact, actually not so fun fact, but Neill kind of considered this movie to be a disappointment. And seeing it for myself, I understand why, right? So here's the thing, right? Going back to alternate reality, right? Where this show for me kind of dropped the ball now is that, because one thing that District 9 did so well was the world building. It felt logical, it felt believable. Again, alternate reality, right? So it's like the normal world, but just more high tech, right? This one decided, here's what, I'm going to show you LA, but it's in 2154, but it looked like normal LA, but just more overpopulated and stuff, and like and like this show touching on healthcare and how hard it is to acquire that.
Right, that was kind of the core conceit of it,
Yeah, but like I just watching like this in retrospect, right? The second time I watched this in my life, right? I just watching like the Earth scenes, and like the idea is that, you know, Earth, you know, look real shit is shit, right? You know, overpopulation, you know what I mean? Just a lot of debt and crime and all that kind of stuff, right? But it didn't look like the time that they set. It didn't look like 2154 to me, right? I think why they gave it that year is because you had to kind of justify how, you know, you have this big space station called Elysium, and all the 1%ers going up there and living their life, and they have the ability to heal any sort of illness or disease now with this device. You had to justify that now, you know.
Yeah, the working speculation is because all the climate change and then all the resource extraction, effectively. I have my issues with this movie, but like I get what it was going for. It's fine.
So, you know, so in other words, it kind of it trying to do the wall eating. You see how Wall-E work is that I think from what if I'm not mistaken, the whole world was kind of messed up. So it's just like everybody.
Again, going for the whole, you know, resource extraction / climate change.
That's right. Yeah.
Like this is what it will go and look like. Blah blah.
Yeah. Blah. So that made sense. But here, like but again, it just don't look like the time that they set now. So I felt like if he had grown it a little bit more in contemporary times, but again, keeping the whole alter reality thing now, it would have been more believable. Also, a lot of time spent on Earth, not enough time on Elysium, right? It's just, you know, the main body is Jodie Foster, who's trying to do this weird French accent, didn't work. But it wasn't enough for the audience to be like, all right, I hate Elysium, so when Matt Damon go up there and start blowing up shit, yes, they deserve that. There wasn't enough time there, right? What they do...
Well, yeah, I have my own alternate take on what they should have done with it.
Okay,
World-building-wise, but
yeah, but
I know the problems.
All right, I'll just wrap things up with it.
Yeah, go ahead.
But you know what I mean? So they spend too much time on Earth for one thing, and all right, like Matt Damon's character has a good enough motivation, right? You know, he ended up getting radiated, he's gonna die in a week, so, you know, he had to go up there and get into the device thing and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, compared to Shalto's character in District 9, I just couldn't I don't know, like I wasn't invested too much into Matt Damon's character. I think it's just because he's just such a big name actor. So it's like, all right, well, if he die, well, all right, it's Matt Damon, okay. I didn't really care that much whether he lived or died, right? Even though he had reason to go up there and do what he had to do, right? I think it's because he was too big of a name, and then also too for me personally.
But that's the problem. It was supposed to be. It was originally supposed to be Eminem, actually. Right? It was supposed to be in Detroit.
Eminem.
That was the original.
Eminem.
Yes. Yes.
I did not know that. Holy shit! Right.
Right.
Good thing you pass out on that in retrospect. Although we don't know
if it would work out, because the idea was to make it more like basically like a sci-fi 8 Mile, like something akin to that, right? That same premise of, you know, poverty, but, you know, how bad things could get in the future, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, although it would have been interesting seeing him with the exosuit busting shots.
That'd be interesting.
The exosuit is the sell of the movie, right? You know, him rocking that exosuit and just kicking a lot of ass, right? But hands down, but hands down, the saving grace of that movie is Sharlto Copley, because he was just as Kruger, boy. I mean, such an asshole, boy. I won't lie. Shalto display assholes very, very well. I will give him that. The man know how to play assholes very well, right? But yeah, he was scum, but he was, he's a hero that you love to hate, man. The man was rocking this sweet katana and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, even though the story was, just underwhelming, yeah, you get some sweet action scenes though, and you could tell again with Neill. Yeah, the man, it's like, it gives him the opportunity, Dread, to just take, like, Gears of War kind of shit, like, okay, I want mechs to look like this, and especially weapons. The man does Neill weapons, and this, okay, I want a gun, like, when you shoot a man, it sends out a beam, and the body blows up. The kind of shit that you see, like, in Half-Life or Unreal Tournament. I want to do that shit in live action, right?
This is closer to the reality of it. If you know the actual history behind District 9 now. So I'll get into that.
Exactly. And last thing, right? I remember people really, really enjoying that movie when it first came out, right? But I will say, unfortunately, it just doesn't hold up as much as it does, man. Which is unfortunate, right? And
I remember the time being disappointed.
I can understand why, in retrospect, now that that Neill. Yeah, wish she could have done this better, right? I'll close with one last thing and then I'll jump into Chappie, right? Fun fact, I did not even know this, right? Adrian Holmes, who plays Philip Banks in Bel Air, was in this movie, you know? He was one of the guys that Matt Damon was working with when he was doing the job. Oh shit, that's you? What?
Yeah, we call him Andor in this too?
Yes, Diego Luna. Diego Luna in this too.
Yeah.
Like big names in this one. Alice Braga is there. She's a big name too, you know what I mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, other than that though, I can understand why it was a big deal back then, but yeah, unfortunately it do hold up, right? But before I get to some surprising stuff about Chappie, yeah, Ricardo, your quick thoughts on Elysium and why it didn't work, compared to District 9.
Yeah. For me, yeah, I remember watching the trailer. Just to get into District 9. Yeah, I remember watching the trailer back on dig.com, and was completely blown away. And I remember talking about it on a forum I used to frequent back then. Shout out to Nick and Ross, Couch Athletics, back in the days, right? We used to play TF2 on that. But yeah, I remember just being super hyped for this, completely blown away by this trailer. The verite take on it and the use of the special effects mixed with that was just like, oh, they thought you had to do sci-fi special effects from here on in. It not looking like a computer, it actually looked like a spaceship floating above Johannesburg. Sound design, just the look at everything. And again, the use of verite in context with the special effects is what really sell it. Like, wow, this actually looking like they did. This movie became an instant classic for me. It's just really, really smart verisimilitude with the alt history narrative. That's really brilliant. And, the real world allusions to the real the political weight of South Africa is why it worked. It's a play on District 6, right? The actual real place, that was, emblematic of apartheid South Africa. And to context that into the storyline is really brilliant. First thing first, the FPS cover shooter, video game aesthetics was the real draw, obviously, because, this was at the height, when this came out, this was the height of Call of Duty Modern Warfare and the Gears of War franchise. So, we had it there. And well, we know why, because this movie was originally meant to be Halo. Mm-hmm. This was meant to be the film version of Halo. And Blomkamp was, if I remember correctly, nodded for it, by Steven Spielberg. And of course, we call him, Lord of the Rings now.
Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson, right? Yeah, Peter, right. And so it was that it was just him doing it, but that fell through. And they say, look, they still had a lot of the pre-production and the set stuff, so they rehaul it to buff up his little short movie, and that's basically what District 9 is. It's just him pulling for that. At the time, it gave me, a lowly aspiring filmmaker the hope, because learning that, at the time, I didn't know this, but, when I was watching the movie, I remember being a little underwhelmed by it, because I thought the special effects was kind of neither here nor there sometimes, only to find out that the movie is like, only $35 million or something like that. Like, oh shit, that real dread, this is $35 million. We get this for like roughly $35 million. Now, again, that is kind of tempered because, it was all of the pre-production work was done because it's Halo, so the real budget would have been a lot larger. If it was a project from scratch. But yeah, still, that was just give me a little bit of hope. And yeah, look, I can't be mad at this. A man get take out with a pig with a gravity gun jet. Like that is a A+ movie right here.
I know, right? When I see, I was like,
I real hard. But yeah, the storytelling was great in this. Just that everything about it is a shame that we never get. 3 years later, Christopher Johnson never come back, right? The mech suit sequence was so cool. The storytelling was great. Like it pulled a lot of stuff from the fly, and then they recontextualized the narrative in the Verity approach with this corporation called MNU and so on and so forth. And they just really made it work. And yeah, again, instant science fiction classic. It really works. It have a lot of funny moments, great action, and it have a couple of little like world building questions, but like it's nothing to nitpick. But it's mostly nitpicks, to be honest. Like it's nothing like to end the story or to kill the movie for you. But it's just like, oh hey, how come this not possible? Or how come this character or these people not relevant to this? They should be. Blah blah blah. Not a big deal, but it still works. Elysium, however, is for me a letdown. Right, I dug the hell out of it. Let's be clear, but it's nowhere near as good as District 9. Right, still decent outing. Decent story and message, and I think it left me wanting again the world building. If District 9 had nitpicks, this had big problems. And the big problem by far was, why does it have, like, that was just my question, and I don't think it really had a satisfying answer to this, and somebody could probably correct me. Why do I constantly have hundreds of ships going up all the time? Like, you're trying to tell me that only these 3 ships ever so often trying to go to Elysium? That was one of the problems I had with it. And then, the world building of just one space station, I felt they could have done more with it. I felt it should have been like something akin to a network of space stations, and then Elysium is the command station of all of those, so like you could understand why they're dominating the whole planet. Like I don't understand, I don't get the sense that the entire planet will be dominated by this one situation. No? Like it didn't really flow make sense to me to control the whole planet. Like it's just LA we seeing, but we should see more or less, however. But again, not a big deal, but it's kind of a big deal given the nature of the story. But yeah, Matt Damon was, I think, too popular for the role. That is a big problem. They should have gotten somebody, a lesser known or relatively unknown actor that would have sold the story a little better. And yeah, he was a pro. He stepped up, and it's cool to see in retrospect, characters like, again, unknown character actors like Diego Luna. Farron Tahir in this. He was in Star Trek 09 as the first captain who got killed in the beginning. But yeah, Salto Copia's Kugler is why it works. And, I was like, but it had me at the time, it's like, wait, that's Vickers? This dude a real range, to play somebody completely opposite to Vickers, in personality and tone and temperament is why it sold her. Right. The big sell at the time was the use of dubstep. Dubstep was hot at the time. Mm-hmm. Cryptic Mind, 6 Degrees, perfect choice. Right, that little montage when they revealed the exosuit for the first time, when he got it, and then they just had the drop, and it does that whole drop real dope. Yeah, and again, more sci-fi guns again, more sci-fi stuff, like that modified AK-47, pretty badass. Or the what is the TST Camrail security rifle, if I remember the name of it. Hard. They just tear up a man in pieces, like it's very Mass Effect, like it's very Mass Effect 3, because again around that time Mass Effect 3 came out. I think this year, what movie this was? What year this was? 2011?
2013.
Right, 2013, right. So that was a year right after Mass Effect 3 came out. So it was, just these Mass Effect, clearly weapons from Mass Effect they pulled from. And yeah, it was good, but I felt it needed more punching up. That's the main problem with it. Like I felt the world building wise, they could have just explained things a little better, to explain the situation a little more. But that's about it. I don't hate this. I had a lot of fun in theaters watching it. I remember seeing this with my cousin, and yeah, just to see a man get tear up into meat chunks from the cam rifle. It's like, alright, yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's how it is. It good but not great, and I really felt they could have. But he himself said that he had a lot of production issues with it. So it's like, yeah, okay, I understand. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So before we get into District 9, because we will, right? So now I'm gonna make things a little bit more controversial now, right? So when it comes to Chappie, right, which is for me, we're gonna call this the final third of this trilogy here, right? Which came on in 2015. I did not see it theatrically because I saw. Look at me here. I saw a few YouTubers, not so much bash it, but just find it was just an overall disappointment, right? So I literally saw this movie this morning, anytime I was recording this morning, right? And controversial take here, agree to disagree, right? I actually think Well, I should say that actually thing. I actually enjoy this more than Elysium. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. The world building felt a lot more organic than what we saw in Elysium, for one thing, right? Because, again, my problem with Elysium is that you tell them this is 2154, but I didn't buy into it. It didn't look or feel like it. It just felt like a hodgepodge of different, sci-fi, dystopian sci-fi elements, right? The overpopulated Earth and, the bougie space station. That's what it felt like, right? But Chappie went back to the altered reality thing. It felt like, oh, this is 2015. In other words, I'll frame it. It's like if, let's just say this movie came out in the 80s and they envisioned the 2010s to be the way how it is in this movie. That's how it looks like. It's almost like it's equivalent of, like, say, Ridley Scott and Blade Runner, right? When it came out in 1982, it was 2019 Ellie. That's what you saw here, right? But this one felt like 2015 Johannesburg, but from a 80s lens, right? And it's a good thing I bring up 80s. Yeah, one of the movies that this movie here is clearly paying homage to is RoboCop, right? It has that sort of very gritty, very grimy.
It felt like a mix of RoboCop and Johnny Number 5. Like it's a lot of
Short Circuit, right? and also some Appleseed too, just with the design of Chappie with the sort of rabbit ears kind of thing, right? I know people had issues with the design of it, but whatever, right? Also, speaking of Chappie, I think that as a character, Chappie actually works, right? So, as this sort of this machine, right? This robot who initially supposed to be this this police robot, but he's reprogrammed now, so he's literally like a child and he's learning a lot of things as a child, right? So how I saw the movie, right? Again, first time I've seen it in my life, I saw it this morning. It's really like this fairy tale, like this dystopian fairy tale, if you think about it.
They do the Pinocchio stuff in it. Yeah, they do the Pinocchio stuff.
Exactly. Right. It's like a Pinocchio story, right? It's this robot who does not understand the world, and then he ends up running into these gang members. And I know, what's the name of the group by Die Antwood? Right. Yeah, which
they held it back. They really held it back from our understand. I know they were trouble on set. There were a lot of trouble on set. Like the reason why a lot of the behind the scenes stuff was happening is because of them. Yeah. And then they were kind of shit. They were kind of shit in front of the screen. I don't think they were particularly good actors. So
I know.
Yeah.
But I will not lie, right? Yes, that criticism is totally justified, right? They are the weakest link in this movie, right? That will be
by far,
and his wife Yolandi, right? They're not horrible, right? But like when they're trying to emote, it just don't work, right? But here's my huge but, right? With the exception of Yolandi, I felt like she was just trying way too hard, right? But Ninja, however, right? Even though I think he's like, even though he's a piece of shit in real life, right? Just as this scummy wankster asshole character, it works. You're supposed to buy into him just being this bad influence. So he keeps telling Chappie, you need to learn to use guns, and this is how the world is, all that kind of stuff. It kind of makes sense that a guy like him, he basically puffing his chest, like, trying to look tough and act tough and whatnot, but that's what they're going for, right? So, like, in terms of the social commentary in this, right? This, for me, what I saw it as was just kind of exploring the criminal element, like just how easy it is for young people to get roped into it, right? Whether it's through music or through, seeing people with chains on and all kind of stuff, fancy cars, but they steal it, what I mean? Just the idea that it's easy for, a youth man, if you will, to get roped into crime, right? That's what the show is about, right? And you see it through the lens of Chappie himself, right? Who was initially supposed to be a cop, but now he's...
Yeah, that's also frustrating. That's also frustrating about people like Diane Wood or whatever it is, because you want the naturalistic, but because they're not disciplined, you get put in that space, unfortunately, of, all right, well, you had to deal with that in the real world problem versus what you want to create. So you need to have a balance now. It's unfortunate. Yeah. It's really unfortunate that they were such a problem behind the scenes.
Exactly. So that's just wrap it up here, right? So for me, because here's the thing, right? Like, I think Shalto crushed it as Chappie, right? I think that's one thing that Blomkamp movies really nailed, though, is robotics. Just how robots move, how, they're most times humanoid, right? But that's how they work, just the practicality of it, the VFX work, always great, right? I feel like Chappie is just a really well fleshed out character, right? And the arc that he goes through is great, right? But very fairy tale like as well, right? Yeah, as you say, Pinocchio, right? And Hugh Jackman is quite convincing as the villain, right? I do like, I do like, just going back to RoboCop, he's the one who has the Ed 209, robot, right? But his mindset is like, oh, I don't want to see robots think by themselves. That's ungodly. I want to be able to control the robots myself. So that's why he have the helmet and he controlling the big machine, right? So that makes sense. I like that, right? I felt like they didn't give Sigourney Weaver much to do because she was just there. She was the CEO of the company and she didn't really do much. That was unfortunate, right? And
I forget she was in this. Yeah.
And Dev Patel work as the moral centers. I mean, he's the creator of it all, right? So I like that, right? And I hear people back then was calling Chappie like the new Jar Jar Binks with the way how he's talking. Like, no, the dialogue that they give him make a lot of sense too. Like it's that sort of and because it's Shalto, it's delivered in this Afrikaans kind of accent, so it worked, but it's also kind of childlike at the same time too, right? So it's like, oh, I'm gonna put you to sleep now. I'm gonna put you to sleep now, and that's the way how he sees characters being killed, right? I'm gonna put you to sleep, right? But in retrospect, they really could have they could have gotten some actors to play Die Antwoord, or I should say the gang members though, because the songs that they put, the
popular stars at the time.
There, yeah, I know.
Plus, the time that's why they get picked.
Yeah, and listen,
they just don't have the discipline on set, so,
right? And in Neil's defense, right, I do like the fact that he brings South African people into the film itself,
exactly.
right? So he don't want to do the Elysium thing where it's an American lead, right? Oh no, I want to bring my people in. All right, cool, right? But you could have find other people to play the gangsters because we're not selling them on the music. Because sorry to say, the music from them was kind of trash, especially one that plays in the closing credits.
They were so popular in terms of their time, like that pop art. I love people like that. If you remember Fatty Boom Boom and their thing, but I remember having the album. I was like. And that's not translating so well.
Yeah, and let's go stuff here, right? And I was actually surprised that Hans Zimmer actually did the score for this, and I do like the electronic, kind of music that he does, right? So think like the Dark Knight music or like the music you hear in that, but it's more electronic, and it worked. Like the man do his thing, right? But I could understand. I could totally understand why people did not like it. And really it had to do with Die Antwoord, right? Because Antwoord, sorry. Yeah, they really brought the movie down, right? But yeah, people just didn't like the story in it, but I'll close this, right? And this for me is the unfortunate problem with this trilogy here, right? Because again, I would buy this in a heartbeat, right? Because like on Blu-ray, right? Because I love the worlds that Neill creates, right? I love how, it's touch. I love how he uses, again, sci-fi to touch on real world problems, right? But I felt like with Chappie, it was like a return to form, right? It was about the alternate reality, not the far, far, far off future, but it don't look far off to me. You know what I mean? That was the problem with Elysium to me, right? It just wasn't believable. With Chappie, I felt like the world building was excellent in my opinion, right? And I do think the movie itself, for me, is a guilty pleasure. Right? I watch it. I watch it. I enjoy it, but I can understand why people didn't like it back then, right? But unfortunately, though, I didn't really see with Chappie, right? The problem with those follow-ups, as in Chappie and Elysium, is that everybody will compare those movies to District 9.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not well thought out ahead of time. That's the problem now. So to me, in the case of Chappie, I enjoy it, but it felt a little too derivative narrative-wise. So I couldn't get into it anywhere near as much as compared to Elysium, which that felt somewhat original. District 9 felt very original, but this was like, all right, really, we doing this? Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I would commit. I would admit it is derivative, right? But again, I think for me, why I enjoy it so much is that it's framed from Chappie himself. Like Chappie is the star of the show. It's not Dev Patel. It's not Die Antwoord. It's Chappie, and I think that just as a lead character, as a robot character, I think that he's the best thing about this movie in my opinion, right? But again, I can understand why people did not like it, right? But I'll close this, right, and then we'll wrap up, right? But I'll just wrap up this section here, and you'll share your thoughts, and then we'll jump into District 9, right? Yeah. I think that's just the downside of starting off your feature film career so strongly with District 9, is that with all your follow-ups, right, especially because it's, dystopian films, right, everybody's going to compare, Elysium to this or Chappie to this, right? And you're always going to feel let down. And that's unfortunate, because I could tell with both those films, yeah, you know what I mean, Neill wanted to do something a bit different. He could have done the District 10 sequel back, and I'm actually glad that he didn't do it in retrospect, right? But yeah, the man just wanted to tell new stories, but it's like, no, it's not as good, it's not as good. But at the same time, just quality-wise, they are steps down. I would admit that even Chappie is a step down from it, but I think that compared to Elysium, I think Chappie is the better film. That's just, in my opinion. Maybe if I watch it again, I'll be like, nah, but I really do think that Chappie is the better film, right? But that's it.
Okay.
And I'll close this, right? But Neill's career is a really fascinating one to me, right? And for me, it's just because of how he manages to embrace just real world stuff with VFX, right? With cutting edge technology, and it's him just being able to take his fandom for video games and incorporate it into film, right? But not do it in a gimmicky way. It's always like
it feels at the time, at least, it felt modern in terms of catering to the audience and who watching the material. Like
exactly,
we live in a multimedia world where it's not only engaging in storytelling. For I don't know, since going on 10 years now, video games take over movies in terms of budget and money and resources and wealth and cultural accumulation. Video games take over in terms of storytelling. It's a shame very few video games tell original enough narrative stories for me to pull me in just yet. Even though I have a lot of great video games there, they're still not there. They're still, unfortunately, still have the film and the problem. But for the most part, you understand why you would have a person who would hybridize the aesthetics and the feeling and the material for this kind of stuff, right?
That's right.
And he's one of the few filmmakers that pull it off. As I said, right, well, we could just last point on him, and then I don't need to get into Chappie. I'm not going to get into Chappie. I didn't like it.
Okay. I just have one last point to make, and then we'll move on, right? So it's really interesting now that his latest film, actually came out last year, is Gran Turismo, which I was like, like shocked to see this man named there, and just the way how he adapted that game into film, right? It works, right? So I am not saying that he is going to be the video game guy and all of his movies going to be very video game-esque, right?
But here's the thing, it kind of should be, but whatever.
I know, but just in general though, like I think that say what you want about Elysium, say what you want about Chappie, but this man, and there was one that he put out in 2021 called Demonic, but I haven't seen it, and I heard it was
he did a bunch of like YouTube stuff. I forget the channel.
Oh, I saw that. I think it's from his VFX studio, something like that.
Right.
Mistaken.
Yeah. So, but I didn't take those too seriously. I just watched them once. They were just more like kind of like just sizzle reel stuff more than anything. Than anything. Like didn't really feel. It's kind of like Love, Death and Robots, but him.
Oh yeah. That's a good example there. Yeah. So. Yeah, but for me though, I think that he really does have a very, very fascinating career, man. And I don't know, just the creativity that he puts in the stories. Although he always swings for the fences with his films and not all the time they work, but I like what this man is doing, right? So in closing, before we get to the District 9, I kind of want that box set, right? I mean, maybe I'll warm up to Elysium a little bit more, and I defend Chappie, but maybe if I watch it again, I'll be like, yeah, but I still like Chappie for what it is, right? For what it's going for, right? And yeah, just those three films, just that trilogy alone, just kind of them up there as just one of the names to kind of keep and just to think about when it comes to contemporary sci-fi filmmaking and screenwriting, right? I think that he should be remembered as one of the not one of the greatest, one of the most fascinating figures in that, and I'll stop there.
Right, yeah, no, I put him in the camp of one of the ascended fanboy filmmakers, right? Mm-hmm. He really, like Peter Jackson or somebody like Sam Raimi, where, it really feel like one of us making a film, quote unquote, putting one of us in quotes, right? He's one of those. He just really, he really feels like, okay, he takes the actual ideas and stuff that you'll see on some Reddit forum or something like that and actually applies real talent and execution to it. And you get that with his movies, for the most part. I mean, again, don't have to love his second and third film, but by no means I'll just consider him a bad filmmaker or anything like that, right? He's really, really great, for the most part. It's a shame that he don't get, a solid, project, but I enjoyed Gran Turismo for what it was, and I really hope that they give him more movies. To be honest, I kind of really want him to do Mass Effect, for example, or something like that, right? Sit down, get a good script, understand and appreciate the material for what it is, and then you just put out. You see how we get this to me, get one of the best people to do the Fallout movie. Sorry, the Fallout series. Get him to do the Mass Effect series or something like that. Well, we'll see. But yeah, that is about it for him as in his career. That's where we are right now, and it's one of those great what-if filmmakers we should have get more projects behind. But we live in a different world now, so you'll find out, who getting what and why. But, he get the Gran Turismo, it's fine. I remember enjoying it a lot, for what it was. It's a good 3 minutes, to tell that story. So that's it.
Right, and note to self, yes, I really do need to watch that movie. I haven't as yet, but that is still on my to watch this, right? So yes, on to District 9 at long last, right? So Sharlto Copley, right? He plays Vicus. Vicus van der Merwe. My bad. Vicus. I am not even going to try to pronounce that surname. I hate words.
Yeah, Vicus van der Merwe.
Van der Merwe. Okay, I'll just call him Vicus, right? Yes, I'm going to call him Vicus going forward, right? He works at MNU, right, which is Multinational United. I'm going to get to MNU in a bit, right? So he is in the Department of Alien Affairs, right? The opening scenes for this are great, right? Because this is where we get the mockumentary aesthetic, right? Which takes up some of the film, not all of it from how I assumed back then, right? And it's basically the MNU just doing this documentary. Like what we're seeing here is the beginnings of this documentary that they did.
Right, well, it's less documentary and more found footage because you learn after the fact what's going on.
Right, exactly. And for me, I just love that even though people probably aren't familiar with like mockumentary films like This Is Spinal Tap or whatever, right? You would have seen shows like Parks and Rec. You would have seen The Office, right? So
this style was at its height around this time.
Yes.
Because you already had the British Office, but you had the American Office coming out around this time. I forget when the American Office started.
I can't remember. Mid 2000s or something like that, right?
Right, it's around that time. So it's like, everybody done the application, the aesthetic is very popular at this point.
Yes. Also, fun fact: Parks and Rec had its series premiere a few months before this movie was released, right? So think about that, right? So yeah, after Vicus, Vicus, right? I say Vicus so much. Why am I saying Vicus? Anyway, so after Vicus introduces himself, we get a way more polished and more expensive version of the first scene of the alien ship hovering over Johannesburg, right? Well, I'm not sure if it was Johannesburg. It was Johannesburg, sorry, right? In the short film, right? I love how Vicus says it didn't come to a stop in Manhattan or Washington or Chicago, but instead coasted to a halt directly over Johannesburg. So it's just like Neill saying, this is not Independence Day we're watching here, right? This is not no American film. This is South Africa shit, right? And just that image of that ship hovering over in the city always stuck to me, though. It was just something about that, though. Again, just going back to great VFX work, it felt and looked very real. It felt very, very organic to me, right? I love that even though he's working with a big budget here, Neill still get to incorporate some SD visuals, right? Because you see the early found footage stuff. That's where you see the helicopters flying towards it. Yeah, it looked like it filmed from an SD camera. Like, hey, it was a Live in Joburg reference. I like that. That's really cool, right? Also, I love the use of talking heads in this. And I love how they use here. They use to deliver exposition. That's great. I love that, right? And I like that it looks like random people. Like you would think it would just be MNU people all along. But I do like that you see like this psychologist, you see like a couple of news reporters and thing, and they all like telling this story, right?
At the time, so this was right when the MCU started.
Because the year before that was Iron Man. I'll bring that up.
Right. So this was like at the time the MCU started. Well, everybody started doing this, which is you get real people as a cameo in the thing. So you'll have Bill O'Reilly or you'll have a clip on Bill Maher or something like that. Just to build the realism. And this kind of did the aesthetic, that same aesthetic with like you really feel like you're watching something off of the BBC or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely right. And in this early bit, they talk about how the humans got onto that big ship, because that is the mothership, keep in mind. And they discover the aliens for the first time. And I won't lie, the first reveal of that is genuinely creepy, because of just how dimly lit it is, and again, just the SD quality of it. You just seen a whole bunch of them, and it just looks really, really creepy, right? But one thing that surprised me, just looking back at it, is that these early these early moments were set in 1982, right? But this is not where the real story takes place. It takes place in 2010, right? So I like that, right?
Yep.
So I don't know if, as far as like South African history if 1982 is really significant. I'm not too sure.
Well, I mean, that's when stuff was. I forget the exact date they was referencing, but I think is when stuff was getting kind of really getting hot with respect to apartheid. I forget exactly when Nelson Mandela went to prison.
I can't remember that neither.
Where the dates exactly, but yeah, it's supposed to line up with a lot of that. So it said that this happened instead, and that switch up the whole narrative about things. So apartheid effectively, because of the alien stuff, apartheid would have ended from a with at least amongst humans, right? That does they would just wrap up all these laws and kind of thing. Because we see blacks and whites in the world living perfectly fine, more or less amongst each other in that sense, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
At least in terms of the hard laws or whatever it is, so little things like that, right? It add up.
I like how they don't stop to say, oh, the apartheid actually ended here. No, it's just
right. Yeah, exactly. Let's make working implications.
That's what it's
about. They make
right?
working implications, and that's why it works. Yeah,
exactly. Aliens and humans. That's what it's about, right? So anyway, the government decided to ferry the aliens off the ship. They place them in this temporary camp, which is right on the ground, right underneath the ship, right? But because they have a lot of aliens and the government don't know what to do with them and the world watching what's going on, the camp basically become this, militarized zone, right? And
right. And a slum.
And a slum, right? A shanty town, which is called District 9, right? And from there, the world building in this movie gets better, right? So we now in 2010, right? And you see parallels of racism in South Africa and the States too, right? So you see these anti-alien signs. So you have some used by humans only. You know what I mean? Very, I love how they do that, right? Very, very clever. And also, I think that was in the marketing too, because of how prawn.
Oh no, yeah.
About the word prawn in a bit, but that's that symbol of the alien with these sort of long arms. I like that.
So at
the time, marketing, that was really great.
Yeah, no. At the time, so the whole viral marketing thing was big for the first time. So I forget which one. Oh god, where's Matt Reeves' first movie? Shit. Oh gosh, she went with the giant monster. Oh gosh.
Oh, Cloverfield.
Cloverfield. Thank you. Right.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So that had the big this had a great viral marketing campaign as well. It had a website and it had a quote unquote official MNU website, and it did everything from the perspective of a normal person in the world would see the thing, and then it have a lot of propaganda, and they frame it in that context really, really well, right? Very proto the boys, very proto, that aspect of how we look at say Vought now, and how people playing with Vought now. It's the same kind of role playing angle to it. Yeah, all that was really clever at the time, and it really works.
Yeah. I forgot about this, but I love this aspect of the movie. I like that the movie addresses why the ship is pretty much stuck where it is, right? So, that this command module was just sort of detached itself and fell off the ship, right? But nobody could find it. Right? But the question is brought up now by the next talking head, whether that detachment was accidental or not, right? So, but for me, after seeing the film, it dawned on me that a certain ship that is shown later on in the film could be that command module, or it could be that they took that and expanded it to be a ship. I'm not sure, right?
Well, I think that's pretty much it. That was the thing. It was just that, and then they hit maybe you find out who and what was involved in terms of hiding it. But yeah, I think that was pretty much it.
Right. Yeah. So getting back to the world building, right, which is fantastic. You see a few scenes of human citizens, black and white, and you're all saying that the aliens should go, right, and points for having them, speak in Afrikaans and English as well.
Right. So slightly disturbing factoid. If I remember correctly, some of that is real footage about them talking about other people. It's not the alien stuff. It's real actors. I think they get, and they just get real footage of. We need to do I think it have this one guy who's like. No, I don't know the exact details if this is entirely true, but I think that one guy who said we should get a virus to wipe out all of them, that dude is real. I think so.
Right.
He really talk about real people. It's oh, jeez. Yeah. I think so. Right, go ahead,
Yeah, and they also touch on the word prawn, right, being this derogatory term, right? So literally it's the N-word, right? And there's a fantastic moment for me.
It's more comparable to it's more comparable to our offensive word in South Africa and Central South Africa. It's more comparable to kaffa, if you know what that word is, right? So it's that, which is about as bad as the N word, or if not worse, some people would argue. For South Africans.
Right. So there's this moment where a police officer, think about it, he says, "You can't say they don't look like that. They look like prawns." Right. What make that scene so great, right, is that if you pause it, right, you see behind him on the wall in his office, right, you see these mugshots of black men, and I did watch this plus Neill was cooking with this shit. There's one who's
exactly.
just fly past him like, dog, like, just the commentary did with that shot though is great, right? And just when the police officer says almost like, oh, but they look like prawns, right? But yeah, for the sake of this review, I will not call them prawns because that's a bad word, right? But anyway,
well, they're real people, but yeah,
I know, right? But in the context of the movie,
right?
Yeah, even though you wouldn't think about it, but like seeing it now, I was like, yeah, prawn is meant to be a bad word, right? But shit, they look like them. I'm sorry. Anyway, so as you'd expect, I mean, there's a lot of violence going on in District 9. Aliens had to survive, but the humans treat them like shit. So, a lot of chaos, right? So, yeah, the humans is like, all right, District 9 had to be strictly controlled, right? So the government turned to the MNU to basically move 1.8 million aliens from District 9 into a quote-unquote safer and better location, which is like a far distance away from Johannesburg, right? And even built this relocation camp, aka concentration camp, basically for them to stay in, right? But they have to let the aliens know 1 day in advance that they're gonna basically
the legal aspect of it. One thing I wish I saw more was the civil rights people for them, like the human allies. Like I wish we saw a little more of that.
Because you just saw one shot of them like protesting outside.
Right. I wish they could have. I don't know. Like this is rewriting the movie, but I felt it could have had a character for that. But whatever. For the sake of the story, that you need to trim things down. Yeah. But they could have like a lawyer or somebody like that who dedicated to their rights. Blah blah blah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, right? So, but it's kind of funny, but it makes sense logically, right? Again, just the world building, right? So the MNU have to hand out these notices and a form for each alien to sign. So the alien homeowners have to sign this form, right? Again,
basically signing off their property rights, effectively.
Yeah. So Vickers now is appointed field officer by the managing director of MNU, who just so happens to be father-in-law.
Right.
On that,
which is really funny on its own, right?
To lead this operation, right? And I love that when they make that reveal, the movie cuts to the next talking head is Vickers' mom, and she says that he was a wonderful son, and then before that moment ends, she paused and started crying, and that's where you get the early indication that something bad happened to him, right? And then from that point, and then afterwards you see Vickers' wife, and she's talking about him like he no longer around, right? And then you see a couple other interviews. There's one with this MNU trainee called Fondiswa, but he's in prison clothes. They're like, all right. They now set it up like, okay, this didn't end well. Like something bad really happened to Vickers, but we don't know.
Right. So another reason why this works so well too is that again the realism of that aspect of the whistleblower being punished aspect of it. But this was around the same time as WikiLeaks. Right, all of that real world shit, all that real world shit was going on now. So again, they lead into and feed into the whole, that verisimilitude really well now. So go ahead.
Yes, it does, right? So the MNU show up outside District 9, and that's where you see the human rights groups, right? Again, I do agree with you. We could have seen more of them, or at least some representative could have been there along with them, but it's just basically MNU people, right? And it's so funny with him. Just there with the work clothes on and the bulletproof vest, and the people that's following him is just like a bunch of police and soldiers alongside him, and then of course you have Fondiswa there just kind of watching everything, right? I love that just when you see it, right? Like when you see him there, when you see Vickers there, right? It just really shows just how this plan wasn't really properly thought up, right? Yeah, trying to be real peaceful with it, but real naive at first, trying to get these aliens to sign a form, but you already know how they're gonna respond. It's like, dude, who's you? Like, and they're talking in their language, like, dude, get this form away from me. Like, you trying to chase me out of my home, bro?
It meant to be like a kind of working formality as well. Like even most of them not literate, at least literate in human or earth language or whatever it is. And so the idea was just to force them to sign effectively or pressure them to sign, kind of thing. Just to get them off the land. But they had to technically do it by the law, real bureaucracy stuff now. Yeah. And that might work.
And I want to make it even more like we see, this thing really not going to work at all. Yeah, it's just how, like just how, just the fact that the soldiers are armed now, you know what I mean? Like, they're ready to bust shots now, you know what I mean? Like everybody ready to bust shots literally, right? There's this bit where Vickers throws like cans of cat food in them. I forgot about that. Like,
there's a sequence a little later that's pretty disturbing. What they do with it. That's a pretty disturbing scene. With the cow.
Yeah. I'll get to that. I mean, I noted that too, right? And there's a moment where he tries to persuade an alien homeowner, Dread, to sign the form and giving them a can of that same food, Dread. Like, so what are you doing, Dread? But what I love this character-wise, this kind of sets up how much of a dick this man is, Dread. Like,
Like,
see it
totally eventually. He totally like clueless. That's the whole point.
Yeah. So back to world building, right? And you know, I found out after the fact this kind of was controversial as far as the movie goes. Yeah, we are talking about the Nigerians because they have like a compound in District 9 as well. So it's humans, right? But they're mostly involved in like scams and criminal activity, right?
Scams, criminal shit, prostitution, which is
interspecies prostitution. I see that like.
Right.
All right, I don't want to know anything more about that.
You don't want to know.
Yeah. I good, right? What did that catch me to? They have a cat food scam, huh? So they're selling cat food for like real high prices and shit.
Right. Just presume cat food is either it's something akin to like a drug for the prawns, if not a thing. But you learn later that what's going on with the fuel stuff, like why. We get into this big argument as to, well, what the alien, do they always look like that? No. Like, the prawns thing is just a mutation because of the fuel thing. And the one kind of popular fan theory is that none of the aliens actually look like that. Right? What you're watching is as a mutation because of the fuel.
Oh,
right?
okay.
The fuel, because of the ending, right? It's right. Well, if Vickers could look like that, then they presumably look more humanoid, right? Or whatever it is, right? We're not sure, right? And so on and so forth.
We'll get to the fuel thing in a bit, right? But you're right.
But also you get into the argument of like that's the metaphor for like a lot of like African history and so on. So like that's the social metaphor of what's going on. What you're seeing is really the product of disaster and accidents and so on. So if you know what the scramble for Africa is and so on and so forth, right? You can get into that all of that history, right?
Right. And another thing to set up here too very well is alien weaponry, right? So. Right. Yeah, the idea is that, in this place, they have guns, and that kind of sets up, okay, what the MNU actually there for. We'll get to that in a bit, right? But about that controversy, I didn't know it till after the fact, but actually not surprised to hear it. Yeah, some Nigerians were not pleased at seeing.
Right, I heard about that. Yeah.
Oh, why are you showing us as thugs and gangsters? What kind of shit is that? I think the Nigerian president or prime minister of it is, I think, was trying to get the movie banned from showing in theaters because of that. But like, I don't think, like, in Neill's defense, I don't think it was like that big of a deal. But maybe it had to do with some other socio-political thing. But because I don't know about African history, I really don't know. But yeah, I can understand why the Nigerians probably saw that like, oh, what are you trying to say there? What are you trying to say? Right? Anyway. So yeah, we get this really, really disgusting scene where Vickers sees these cow carcasses now in this shack, and they have these pipes there, and the fueling basically, like, it's basically the blood coming up from the carcasses now. The bodies, if you will, into these alien eggs, Dread. And it's great world building there, but it's real disgusting, right?
Yeah, but what worse is that? They decided to commit some abortions. Like, wow, it worked. Yeah.
So fundamentally, I like the fact that this shows that the aliens are gonna take whatever resources they have, whatever little resources they have, to for population purposes. I do like that, right? But dog, what makes the scene real disturbing, Dread, is that Vickers start pulling the pipes, Dread.
Yeah, buddy.
And
Dread.
That's where you really see the character do this complete 180. And it's how gleeful he is. He talk about, just pop them out. There we go. Right?
Pop it like popcorn.
Killing the babies, Dread. And then afterwards, he torch the place. He talk about, you hear this pop? Yeah, it's like popcorn. It just pop.
Casual.
Dog, what is that shit? God damn. But yeah, this is where you really start to hate because at this point on, but like this man just really don't care, right? And that's where you realize that it's less about aliens trying to get them to sign forms, and it's more about finding reasons to kill them, or at least to go into their home and invade, right? And then you realize the real reason why the MNU are there, they want their weaponry. And right after that, I love that, just in terms of editing and storytelling, they reveal that the MNU is the second largest weapons manufacturer in the world. I was like, holy shit, that reveal is brilliant, Joe. Like, coming at just the right time now. Can you just see in this thing with the shock and the pop and all that kind of stuff, and then they tell you, oh, this is why they're there in the first place, Jed, you know what I mean? And it's brilliant, Jed. So, yeah, I mean, that's just such a great review, right? And I love that, like, in true third-person shooter fashion now, you realize that the guns are bioengineered to work only with the aliens now. So,
right.
MNU have been doing all these tests, just trying to figure out how to get the humans to use the weapons, right? That has a big part to play in what will happen later on, right? So here's where the movie kind of breaks out in the mockumentary style and it sort of focuses on these two adult aliens, right? We don't know who they are yet, but they just discovered this device, right? Assumedly from the mothership, right? They carry it back into this shack and then they start to pour out what is the fuel, as I mentioned earlier, right? This sort of black fuel, right? One of these aliens actually has a kid. I thought that was like a really interesting aspect. I think it's like probably one of the few kids that you see in this, one of the few alien kids that you see in the movie, right? But they say, because they're talking, you know, they actually converse with each other. Yeah, you know, the humans can acquire it, right? And they're saying that too because, yeah, while they're doing this stuff, this is where Ficus and his team start knocking on the door. And that from that perspective, that's where you see, you know, it's from the perspective of this off-screen MNU cameraman who's just basically filming everything, right? So yeah. The alien, the alien father, we'll see who he is later on. He leaves the scene now to go back to his son, right? And his son was the one who found the device in the first place, right? So the other one, he is brought out to the shack at gunpoint, right? And then, Vickers starts looking around for weapons, and then he finds the actual, you know, canister, whatever it is, right? And yeah, like a dumbass. There's a lab.
A lab to use to synthesize, presumably to synthesize the material to use it later.
Oh, okay, because he does say there's a chemistry set there, right? Right. Yeah, you know, like a dumbass, no, literally like a dumbass. Yeah, he touched one of the buttons, and then the liquid sprays on the space, like, right? Right. And what makes it so ironic is that all of this is really to search for weapons, eh? And you find out that there actually is a huge amount of weapons in this shack too, right? But this literally is the beginning of the end of Vickers here, right? And then also too, they end up, the alien ends up attacking the humans. So yeah, in the process, Vickers' arm gets broken, right? He get thrown into this barrel.
He kind of sacrificed himself. I forget the other character's name, but he sacrificed himself for Johnson and them to get sliding. Right. To get away, because to not be found in that location.
That's right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so right, as I said, the alien who left to reunite with his son, yeah, his name is Christopher Johnson. You know, very, very on the nose too, you know, in terms of, you know, for lack of a better term, slave name. That's how I see it. It's kind of like that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting too.
It's a very directly assimilated name, though. Yeah.
That's right. Yes, right. Yeah, and then, from there now, of course, that alien who, was attacking the humans, of course, he get killed. So, yeah, here's where you see how this chemical or fuel, if you will, affects Vickers, right?
He's bleeding through his nose.
Yeah,
They started to do it is Jeff Goldblum fly stuff.
Yeah, the fly stuff. I was thinking the same thing too, right? Because, he get dizzy, he start vomiting. Also, just listen, just this little point to make, right? So those listening to this review here, right? After you puke your guts out, right? Don't eat fast food, us.
Yeah.
But then you went to this chicken and chips place just so afterwards, like, bro, like, you know what I mean? Like, man, my stomach's empty, man. Like, why do?
Yeah, the alien biology kind of affected him now, so he's having different feelings and different cravings and whatever it is.
But like I understand you're hungry and whatnot, but dog.
But at this point, you're not thinking clearly. You're not thinking clearly at this point, because that's around the time when he started change. He started seeing the changes.
Yes.
The bite of the nail and the gross stuff. Though.
Yeah, we'll get to more gross stuff in a bit, right? But yeah, while he's eating, there's Fundiswa and a couple other people, and a couple other people noticing, you're having a nosebleed, but the blood is black, right? So yeah, and then when you go back to his office now, the man Neill start coming off threads. So like it's some real David Cronenberg body horror shit, right? And back then when I saw it was disgusting. Seen it now, boy. I love that Neill didn't pull any punches. Like, I want to show you this disintegration quick and fast, right? So second act shit, we want to see that, right?